Welcome, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon to you, depending on where in the world you're sitting. I'm Luis Gonzalez, Master Facilitator with Fierce, and it's a real pleasure to be with you all here today. I'm excited for the opportunity to share with you the positive impact that effective conversations can have on your organizational culture and bottom line. Today, we'll begin by reviewing research that tells us not only is miscommunication common in organizations, but we also tend to blame others for that miscommunication and disregard any role we may have played in it. Then I'll share with you the Fierce foundational approach to closing the miscommunication gap, and I'll demonstrate a brief overview of our 5 Fierce conversation programs. We'll then spend the remainder of our time together chatting just a little bit about the successes of one of our largest clients. So let's begin. How about that? Conversations is what we're talking about. Conversations are the work of everyone. That's us. The work of each and every one of us here today. And conversations are the workhorses of our organizations. Conversations are our tool to get things done, and they're a key part of our extended business strategy. After all, what gets talked about in an organization, how it gets talked about, and who gets invited to that conversation determines what is going to happen and what will not happen in that organization. We at Fierce have taught hundreds of thousands of associates, leaders, and executives on how to become expert conversationalists who save their organizations time and money by knowing what to talk about, how to talk about it, and why it matters for the bottom line. So by the end of today's session, you'll know more about the connection between conversations and your individual and organizational success and happiness. So before we jump into all this, before we start analyzing the state of communication, I'd love to ask you all just a simple question. Have you ever avoided a conversation at work? This could be as small as deciding not to share your opinion on a project, let's say, or maybe even as major as choosing to avoid talking with your manager about an issue that's maybe been nagging at you for months, and maybe you haven't found the right or the perfect time to talk with them. So you'll see a poll on your screens now. I'd love to just see your responses. Please take a moment and answer yes or no to the poll question. Have you ever avoided a conversation at work? Okay, I can see them coming in. Wow, okay, let's keep it going. All right, well, not surprisingly, looks like the majority of us have avoided a conversation at some point in our professional careers. It also probably won't surprise you that this is not unique to just us. And yet, research shows that that business leaders attribute successful conversations as one of the top factors that best set their organizations up for the highest return. So, in 2017, a Harvard Business Review survey was taken of more than 550 business executives around the world. These leaders were asked what factors would bring them the highest return in their businesses, and they responded with the following. 73% of them said a high level of customer service is the top factor to bring highest return in their business. Let me add, from a personal note, I myself worked for the Marriott and Ritz-Carlton hotel companies for over 18 years, and I know to deliver a high level of customer service requires conversations with the customer. We also see here that 71% of these business executives responded with high level of effective communications being key to a highest return in their businesses, as well as 68% saying high level of employee engagement. Now, while number 2 specifically calls out communication, if we look deeper, it's apparent effective communication is key to all of those factors most likely to bring success to an organization. And because effective communication is so critical to organizational success, we decided we wanted to dig a little deeper to better understand communication, and more specifically, miscommunication in the workplace. So in a recent survey we undertook some research with Quantum Workplace on trends around miscommunication in the office. And what we found was that great conversations impact engagement, but they don't happen regularly enough. And what's worse, employees don't take responsibility for that miscommunication. In fact, half of the employees we surveyed said they are rarely involved in workplace miscommunication. Now listen to this. Those same employees eagerly pointed their finger at everyone else. They said that the other 81% of the workforce is occasionally responsible for the miscommunication. So we found that we are inclined to believe it's not me, it's you. We often want to have a favorable view of ourselves, right? So distancing ourselves from a problem, such as miscommunication at work, allows us to reason that we are not to blame. Other people are. We do this to defend our self-worth. We often want to have a favorable view of ourselves, right? So if a problem emerges, then blame can be attributed to some other source, such as coworkers, so as to defend our own sense of self-worth. And with the majority of employees blaming others for miscommunication problems at the office, the implication of ineffective communication is huge. When communication is not supported at the enterprise level, you might see some of these warning signs. Turnover and top talent leaving. Well, people quit gradually then suddenly. By the way, we'll talk more about that as a fierce foundational idea in just a moment. Someone's frustration with their position tends to build up over time until they've just had it, leading them to feeling a lack of purpose, having low productivity, and then they just up and leave altogether. When that happens, the impacts to our bottom lines are staggering. Think of the recruiting costs, the training, and hiring costs alone, not to mention the overworked and overstretched employees who have to absorb the responsibilities until a replacement is found. And then trust might be eroded by lack of transparency. When your team trusts you as a leader, it increases commitment to team goals. Communication then improves, and ideas are more likely to flow freely, thus increasing creativity and productivity. It's plain and simple. Ineffective conversations lead to confused priorities, low productivity, and a lack of purpose. Time and time again, we've seen common costs in the form of mistakes, rework, breakdowns, and inefficiencies in our clients. I promise you there's a better way. At Fierce, we help transform the conversations in organizations that are central to their success. We facilitate workshops that demonstrate how to have effective and honest conversations, ones in which we come out from behind ourselves into the conversation, showing curiosity about other perspectives, and disclosing what we really think and really feel. These are fierce conversations, and if applied at your organization and even in your personal life, you'll be setting your organization up for greater success. The simplest definition of a fierce conversation is this. It's one in which we come out from behind ourselves into the conversation and make it real. Real as an honest, authentic, true, trustworthy, interested, hey, even curious. A fierce conversation is one in which we come out from behind ourselves into the conversation and make it real. Now, one foundational idea of fierce conversations is inspired by Ernest Hemingway. And in his novel, The Sun Also Rises, there's a character who is asked by another character, how did you go bankrupt? And he answers, 2 ways, gradually, then suddenly. And this is a core belief that we have at Fierce, and that is our careers, our companies, our relationships, and our very lives either succeed or fail gradually, then suddenly, one conversation at a time. At some point in the past, we may have asked ourselves, how did we lose that client that counted for 40% of our net profit? Or how did we lose that awesome key employee who was such a great contributor, who thought outside the box and brought such a great vibe to the team and to the organization? Or maybe, why are we struggling with missed sales targets? Well, more than likely, those things happened gradually, then suddenly, one pointless or one missing conversation at a time. And guess what? It's often the missing conversations that are the most costly to a team or an organization. So how do we make sure we're prepared during the gradually so that we arrive at our desired suddenly? That's what fierce conversations are all about. Fierce conversations are an interrogation of reality. They provoke learning. They help guide us to tackle our toughest challenges. And the part that I love, they enrich our relationships. Now, I'm really excited to share a high-level overview of our 5 fierce conversational programs that have helped transform conversations and have boosted the success of countless organizations around the world. So in the following slides, I'll be breaking down our approach to each one of those conversations. I'll share our model for each one of those, and then I'll provide you tips to implement them into your own organizations right away. So first, let's dive into our team program just a bit. These conversations turn your team meetings into dynamic think tanks with our approach that shatters silos, increases collaboration, and boosts buy-in across your organization. You might benefit from investing in better team conversations if your workplace operates in silos, or if the loudest voice in the room is almost always the one that contributes and gets heard, or if you pose a question and ask for insights and you get crickets, long silence instead. There are 3 objectives to a fierce team conversation that break down silos and accelerate success. Number 1, the first objective is deepening yours and others' understanding of and appreciation for differing, even competing views of reality. And again, I want to highlight that it's also appreciation for. So our team model will help us deepen our understanding of and appreciation for differing, even competing perspectives. It will also help break down silos and accelerate success by structuring high levels of alignment, collaboration, and partnership, not only on your own team, but across the organization. And will also help accelerate success by helping you make the best possible decisions for your team and for your organizations. So our team model is based on a beach ball. It's a great analogy that we use. Each stripe on that beach ball represents a different color, or each stripe is a different color. Each one of those different colors represents a different person on a team or in an organization. So at your next meeting, place each person on your team, no matter where they're from, maybe from payroll to marketing to IT, maybe even HR, on a separate colored stripe of that imaginary beach ball. Each person owns a stripe, and each stripe represents a piece of the larger truth that you're trying to reach. So if this beach ball represented an organization or a team, for example, each individual would be a different stripe on that beach ball. So, for example, let's say I'm on the blue stripe. That's my perspective. I'm a learning and development person, and learning and development is represented by the blue stripe, and that's the stripe I'm on because that's my expertise. That's what I do. My director of finance, by the way, is on the red stripe. He's working with numbers all day long. Maybe someone in HR is on another stripe, someone from sales on another. And when it's time to weigh an important decision or deploy a new initiative or a new strategy, each team member, one at a time, contributes their piece of the solution. Plus, when everyone knows that they will get a turn to speak, it undercuts the tension and unspoken assumptions often present in the meeting room. So, when should you have a beach ball conversation? When you have a decision to make that may affect other stakeholders or teams, that might be a good time to have a beach ball conversation to see how your decision may affect those other teams. Maybe you've got a strategy to design or opportunities coming your way, such as mergers, acquisitions, succession planning. I sum it up this way. Any time that you would benefit from hearing multiple, even competing perspectives to help you make a better decision, that is the best time to have a beach ball conversation, whenever you can benefit from hearing multiple perspectives. This is an effective technique for soliciting a full range of perspectives and input. We use it at Fierce all the time, and I've seen other organizations use it to their advantage as well. Now, next up is our feedback model. And this one is a tricky one to get right. What I mean by that is feedback is often tricky to get right. Billions of dollars are wasted on ineffective performance management conversations that simply are not improving results. On the flip side, an environment that is afraid of feedback also shrinks our bottom line and is detrimental, believe it or not, to our physical health. Organizations are demanding that effective conversations start happening. The Fierce feedback model is a simple, impactful solution that provides the tools needed for consistent, detailed feedback that also enrich relationships. Fierce feedback explores the challenges of giving and receiving feedback. Participants learn techniques and steps for preparing for and delivering effective feedback. So by looking at feedback from both the giver and the receiver's perspectives, learners have the opportunity to conduct real feedback in class and receive feedback about how well that feedback was received. So when we reframe feedback as a series of candid, consistent, two-way conversations, we spark lasting change. So rather than a once-yearly special event, feedback should unfold in ongoing, in-the-moment, day-to-day performance conversations. At Fierce, we call these in-the-moment conversations waypoints. Very similar to one of our map applications that we use on our smartphones that help us navigate from one point to another. By now, in this day and age, we're all familiar with what that GPS application sounds like, and that voice will often tell us there's a roadblock, make a left turn, make a right turn, make a U-turn. These are our waypoints, and that's what we call the in-the-moment conversations that happen in the workplace, waypoints. Now, the term waypoint is commonly used to describe a physical point of reference and navigation. As I've already mentioned, it's now more widespread and well known with the invention of those map applications that we use on our smartphones and that voice that we trust to guide us from place to place. Well, feedback waypoints are really no different. They help us know where we are and where we're going. They help us get to our destination via the quickest route. In other words, they help us reach our stated goals. via the quickest route. These waypoints are critical when it becomes, they are critical when it comes to our ability to be awake in our own lives and our careers. No matter how good we might be at self-reflection, think about it, honestly, we can't really see ourselves objectively, completely, or even accurately sometimes. We need the perspective of others to help us with that. Basically, we need feedback from others. Fierce feedback will help create an honest and authentic culture as conduct performance conversations start to happen regularly and in the moment, not just once a year. And they will create a culture where feedback is delivered in a way that enriches relationships. Now let's move on and talk a little bit about our CONFRONT program. Most of us feel anxious, fearful, at the very least uncomfortable about clearly and directly confronting the behavior of others. We often tend to think in terms of confronting the person, and we tend to see the confrontational conversation as something like a battle to be won. In fact, we may even use confrontational language, such as going head-to-head or toe-to-toe with someone on this. Well, the purpose of Fierce Confront is to give participants the tools and the confidence to confront their toughest issues with courage, confidence, and skill. For example, most of us tend to think in terms of confronting the person, as I've already mentioned, but what if we look at it in terms of confronting the issue instead? What if, instead of going head-to-head, both people went shoulder to shoulder in search for what's really going on here, in search for the truth? Now, here are some ways that we love avoiding real confrontational conversations. These are some methods I've used. Maybe they're familiar to you as well. We may start the conversation by stating or asking, "So how's it going?" This is a common approach when initiating a confrontational conversation. And in the context of confrontation, what's the problem with this approach? Well, we already know how it's going, and it's probably not going so well. Hence the need to have this conversation. Well, do you think the other person knows that you know? Most likely they do. So basically, this is an inauthentic way to begin a conversation like this. Then there's the sandwich method. A lot of us are familiar with that. This was the approach that was taught for many years, one I learned to use way back in the late 80s and 90s, early in my career. For those of you that are not aware of what we mean by the sandwich method, this is where I start off by saying something nice, that's the bread, and then pow, I hit them with the actual intent or the meat of what I really want to tell them. And then I finish off with something nice again. That's the other slice of bread. Well, what's wrong with this? The impact of the message that I'm trying to get across can get lost between the two soft, fluffy pieces of bread. Delivering a compliment should be a separate conversation of its own. So using the sandwich method when you need to confront a situation, ineffective. Then we have too many pillows. In other words, softening the blow. Those of us who don't want to hurt someone tend to put a lot of pillows around the difficult message. We might say things like, "Oh, I'm sure you didn't mean to," or "Maybe I wasn't clear," or "Maybe I didn't get the message across," or, we apologize for something that we really don't need to apologize for, and it's because we're uncomfortable with the situation. And so what's the result? What can happen when we put a lot of pillows around this kind of a message? Well, obviously, the real message or the real intent can get absolutely lost. In fact, the other person may not even hear what you really wanted them to hear because it was just surrounded by too many soft and cushy, nice things, if you will. Ever heard of selective hearing? We hear what we want to hear. So many risks when using too many pillows to soften the message of what we're trying to say. Then we have writing the script. That's where we decide in our own heads how the conversation is going to go. So, for example, I'll start off by saying this, and she'll probably get defensive and say that, and I'm not going to like it, so I'll say this in response, and she'll come back with that, etc., etc. Well, guess what? It's not even worth it. Don't even write your script. It's not going to go the way you plan it. This is an organic conversation with real live human beings, so it's probably not going to go that way. What you can do is write your opening statement or your opening script. You cannot script the other person's response because the conversation will never go the way you scripted it, as I mentioned, but you can prepare for the conversation by thinking about and writing how to open the conversation. Finally, we have the dump truck. Maybe this has been used on you before. Maybe you've been dumped on before. This is where we store up and store things up until finally it all explodes out at once. We wait and we wait, we hold off having these conversations, and we wait some more until we finally just explode all over someone and it all comes out. Well, we at Fierce say, deliver the message before it becomes an explosion in a graceful and compassionate way with enriching the relationship in mind. So when do we use the confront model? Fierce confrontation teaches a direct way to address the issues you've been avoiding. It's a model that shifts attitudes, reduces tensions, and enriches relationships. Notice we keep saying that. So important to a fierce conversation. Our coach program is perfect for those who are finding that their coaching conversations are stuck in advice-giving mode. Ask yourself if you are discussing what's important, or are you just scratching the surface in your conversations, in your coaching conversations? Are you really getting to the heart of the matter? Are you really discussing what's important, or are you just scratching the surface? When we linger on the edge of a conversation instead of really diving deep, we're undermining our own success. Our coach model is a powerful coaching model that prompts self-actualization and uncovers solutions, stimulates potent action, and unblocks professional paths. This fierce approach exposes the profound difference between advice giving and self-actualization. And in doing that, it helps the coachee, that's the one being coached, it helps them recognize and come up with their own solutions. And that empowers them to discover their own developmental paths. We expose the participants to what we call the mineral rights model as a way of drawing out these solutions, which then translate into action, rather than giving advice and just telling, which rarely prompts action. Now, this model is called mineral rights because it allows us to mine for greater clarity. It allows us to mine and go deeper for improved understanding, as well as an impetus for action. Through questioning, through a series of Socratic questions, the coach drills through layers of resistance, builds trust, and uncovers the next right action. The emphasis here is on impetus for action or change, if necessary. Now, when should you use our coach model? Use the fierce coach model when you need to provide a push for action or change, or when you need to stimulate self-generated insights and curiosity, or perhaps when you need to surface and address issues critical to success, or if you simply want to learn more by asking clarifying questions. Now, last up is our DELEGATE program. Fierce DELEGATE conversations will allow you to free up more time for other responsibilities, develop leaders, deepen individual accountability, and give participants an effective tool with which to accomplish those objectives. Delegation conversations will help identify clear actions so that everyone understands their authority to make decisions. It provides a clear upward path of professional development and helps develop leaders within the organization by allowing employees to take on more challenges and responsibilities. So at Fierce, we introduce what we call the decision tree model that allows leaders and team members to gain task and project clarity while at the same time increasing accountability across the board. It's a graduated steps approach to accountability. These are ongoing responsibilities, not simply tasks. So for example, you see our decision tree model here on the screen, and at the top we have leaf level decisions. At the leaf level, an associate or an employee or a person makes the decision. They act on it, and they don't need to report it. In other words, it's their baby. They've got it. So much trust is there that they don't even need to report. You move down a level, you see the branch level. At the branch level, we make the decision, we act on it, but the difference between the branch level and the leaf level is that with branch, we report the action that we took, either daily, weekly, monthly, or some predetermined cadence with whoever the leader is. So leaf, make the decision, act on it, no need to report it. Branch, make the decision, act on it, but please report what you've done. Then we move down level of responsibility to the trunk level. At the trunk level, you make the decision, but before you roll it out, report the decision before you take action. So again, the difference between trunk and branch is you still make the decision, but before you announce it, before you roll it out, before you take action, report the decision in case the leader, or me in this case, needs to make any changes. And finally, there's the root level. At root level, these decisions are made with input from others or ones that I'm not willing to delegate. Root level is where someone gets face time and is enabled to engage in the conversation, but with no real responsibilities. So again, very quickly, root level, get some face time, get in the conversation at the root level, show your thinking process, etc., get noticed. You move up to the trunk level, you make the decision, start making decisions now, but before you act them, report those decisions. Then you move up again to the next level, branch level, you make the decision, act on it, and then report the action on some predetermined cadence. And at the leaf level, full responsibility. Make the decision, act on it, 100% trust, you don't need to really report it. You've got this. Now, what are the outcomes? The direct outcomes of using this decision tree are, number one, super important. Everyone is clear on when and where they have the authority to make decisions and act. An individual's development path is clear. Their progress is acknowledged. Leaders are free to lead versus micromanage. So here's how it works. As an employee demonstrates a track record of good decisions, let's say in the trunk category, then it's satisfying for both them and the manager when those decisions are moved from the branch category, from the trunk category to the branch category, and subsequently perhaps to the leaf category. And a culture is created where everyone in the organization takes responsibility for their actions. So those are our 5 core training programs. We've taken a very high level look at those 5 core training programs. Now moving forward, let's take a look at how one of our clients, a large financial services organization, who has used Fierce feedback conversations to drive results for their organization. So last fall, our client had their employees take a Gallup survey to find out how happy they were within the organization. And the main objective for the company was to find out if employee engagement had increased within the organization since the previous survey in 2016. Well, unfortunately, the results showed 0 improvement. The major issues employees at the director levels and below flagged were Number one, their opinions were being asked to check a box to show the organization was being collaborative. But senior leadership really wasn't truly interested in listening. I call this the illusion of inclusion. Development discussions were not productive or robust enough, and top talent was becoming frustrated with lack of authentic development discussions, and they were leaving the organization. Employees who were happy with no feedback and who avoided tough conversations, on the other hand, were staying with the organization. So it's clear from the survey results there were problems with trust in leadership. Simply put, people did not feel heard, and it was causing them to feel incredibly frustrated. So what was a pretty disheartening conclusion from that survey actually turned into a blessing in disguise that couldn't have been timed better for that organization. So let me explain. Around the same time the employees in that organization were taking that survey, several other employees had recently attended a Fierce Conversations course in New York, of which fierce feedback was one of the models being taught. When these employees came back from that fierce workshop, they immediately told their colleagues that they had the answer to finally solve their engagement problems. They needed to reinforce the need for communicating authentically on all levels within the organization. Simply put, they needed to foster an open feedback culture. After connecting with us, this organization began teaching fierce feedback to senior leaders through their certified facilitators. And once those classes were complete, all the other employees in the organization were encouraged to participate in the Fierce Classroom, of which more than 90% have currently done. To date, more than 90% have taken these Fierce feedback workshops. Now, what came next was really extraordinary. Our clients said they could see a shift in how employees carried themselves throughout the office. So in other words, employees were confident asking for feedback, and they felt more empowered within the organization. They also told us that employees have been incredibly enthusiastic in the Fierce workshops, and they've been solving their problems with their coworkers on the spot using these Fierce feedback principles. And as a result, morale has vastly improved within the company as a whole, and employees have been reporting back that they've been practicing regularly the Fierce feedback model. They've been asking for feedback, being courageous, and asking tough questions, to quote someone from our client. So what are the results? Discovered newfound confidence in asking for feedback. By the way, hey, if you're not getting any feedback, no one's offering it, you might want to ask for it. That's tough to do. Other results, they're incredibly enthusiastic in the Fierce workshops in the classroom and solving problems with their coworkers. Morale has improved within the company. Confidence has increased. Employees have reported back that they're continually practicing giving and receiving feedback. Now, here's the cool thing. Employees are going to be retaking this Gallup survey soon in the next coming months, and our client is highly confident that this time they will see the engagement results increase. So, what's the recap here? What are our key takeaways? Well, my suggestion is first, take a screenshot of what you see on your screen right now, the 5 key tips that should be appearing on your screen. Take a screenshot of that, print it out, review it, and by the way, we will share these slides with you after the webinar, but I recommend you go ahead and take a screenshot of this so you can have it handy right away. And then actively engage with colleagues, teammates, and other leaders to seek out their perspectives. And encourage feedback in the moment, 24/7, 365 days a year, rather than saving it for pre-scheduled meetings. Have one-on-one conversations with someone to dive deeper into pressing issues. Know more about what's going on. Get curious. Go deep. Don't be satisfied on the surface. Also, name the issue, whatever the issue is, and be fully present until you reach a resolution that works for both parties. And identify top time-taking tasks and assess the capacity of others to take on those tasks. So I challenge you all on the call with us today. I challenge each and every one of us, myself included. Take a deep look into what we've talked about today and think about where you struggle the most in your communication, in your conversations. Which fierce conversation model do you think you benefit from? Which fierce conversation model do you think your team and your organization would benefit from? So what's next? Kickstart your conversations. Download our ebook, The 5 Conversations You Need to Have, the 5 Conversations You Need to Start Having Today. You see it on your screen there. It reviews in more detail the 5 conversations that we've just spoken about today. It will go into more detail on those conversations to master in the workplace. You can access the book through that link that you see there on your screen. And as I mentioned, we will share these slides with you, so if you don't write it down now or capture it now, you will get it. Also, we have a blog at Fierce, and on our blog, we have hundreds of articles that offer tips, advice, and personal experiences that are all centered around how to best improve communication. I really recommend you take a deep dive into our library, into our archives. Read them all or read a few, but there you see the link that'll take you there. It's fierceinc.com/blog. Lots of resources there for us. And finally, that's me. I'd love to connect with you. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. Let's continue the conversation. Also, share your feedback with me. I need your feedback. It's going to help me improve my game. How did I do today? Seriously. You can email me directly or find me on LinkedIn here at this link. I'm really excited and look forward to connecting with you all and expanding our networks. Also, let's not forget, we're on Twitter, Facebook, and of course, our Fierce Company page is on LinkedIn. So please join us there, share it with your colleagues, employees, and friends, and take your conversations to the next level and improve your results. So I'd like to end the webcast today with a few minutes for questions and answers. If you don't have a specific question, I'd love to hear your reflections anyway on something that resonated for you today. So with that, we will turn it over to people that are helping me produce this show today. Do we have questions coming in? I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. This is Rebecca. I'm going to be answering all of your questions. We have a few in right now, but if there's any more questions that you have, you can just enter those into the questions poll, and Luis and Mitch, who's also on the line here, will be happy to answer. So our first
thanks, Rebecca. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Sorry, please enter your questions in the chat box. That's super important. Rebecca will field them. Mitch and I will answer them. Thanks, Rebecca. Go for it. What's our first question?
Of course. So the first question is from Patrick, and his question is this training geared towards a certain level of employee in the organization?
I can take this one. Hey, everyone. This is Mitch speaking. Thanks for the question, Rebecca. So is this training geared towards a certain level of employee? The quick answer here is no. Fierce is applicable to all levels of an organization. We've trained anyone from C-suite executives down to director level and mid-level managers, as well as individual contributors. We recognize that really no matter your role, no matter your industry even, you're very likely going to need to have tough conversations at some point. One important thing to note about our training and the concepts that we teach is that, while they're simple, they're not easy, and they manifest themselves differently for everyone. So if you actually go through the training, the way that you will contextualize the content might be different depending on what's relevant to you day to day. For instance, an individual contributor might be more interested in asking for feedback from their manager. Somebody at a bit of a higher level might want to know how they can better structure their meetings to invite their team to share their perspectives. So it varies, and it's definitely applicable to everyone. In the classroom, we do use a Socratic method for the training. So we have lots of questions-based exercises, one-on-one and small group work, where we actually invite you to have a conversation about what's actually pressing to you. So that way everyone walks away with the skills and the confidence to go out and have those tough conversations.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mitch. Our next question is from Jenna. Can you give an idea of cost for either individuals or teams, as well as the cost to train members of organizations to be facilitators?
That is a great question. Yeah, we do get a lot of people interested in knowing about the pricing for our programs. I will say for the trainer certification specifically, it definitely varies case by case depending on what you're looking for. There's a couple different costs you need to consider aside from just the certification itself. It depends on how many people you're looking to train, how many of our models you would be interested in training. So the best way to give you an accurate answer to that question would be to give us your information. We'll follow up with you after the webinar and make sure to connect, get a better idea of what exactly you're looking for and what you would like to solve for, and then go from there.
Thank you, Mitch. And we have one more question that just came in, and that is from Joe. And Joe asks, how do you deliver fierce?
That is a great question and very important. So there are a few different ways that we partner with organizations to deliver the training. The first way is with our team of master facilitators. So in addition to Luis, we have many more master facilitators who can travel to you and facilitate a workshop on site. Secondly, we also have a train the trainer program wherein a member of your team or your organization would go through our certification workshop. And once certified in the content, that trainer could facilitate workshops within the organization. We do see, I would say, more of our clients opt for this trainer certification method. We found it's a lot easier to integrate into employee development programs, and it is really very effective in creating more sustained behavior change, having that in-house fierce champion to continuously reinforce the learning. One thing I didn't mention is that we also do have the ability, to facilitate training virtually as well as certify individuals to train virtually. I will note here that this method of training is also live and instructor-led with the same small group exercises and active conversation practice. So not something you or your team can sleep through, but it is great for flexibility if you have a dispersed workforce or something like that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mitch. It looks like those are all the questions that were sent in. So thank you for those. And I think that wraps us up for today.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to hang out with us and discuss fierce conversations. I look forward to connecting with you all in person or at least on LinkedIn. Join the network. Until next time, make it a great week ahead, and we'll see you again. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day.